Hello, I'm Judith-Kate Friedman. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you, Tracy, Richard, and everyone, and especially everyone who shared today for your beautiful work and your courage and encouragement and your resilience. There have been so many synchronicities as well as learnings, fresh learnings for me all over the place. Today, I'll be presenting excerpts of what has become a new work, a larger work than I can share today, begun this season just within the last 2 weeks, expressly for this symposium, which has taken hold now in a very interesting and important kind of vital way, as is the whole subject that we're here for. My project is called The Unstoppable Stirring, a multimedia song cycle emerging from autoethnographic research over the course of the past 2 weeks. I communed in a daily ritual for 36 minutes or more to connect, attend, sing, sound, and make art with my living world, neighbors, my ancestors, and myself, and experienced surprising and stirring forays, deep moments of interspecies conversations, and as much time indoors grappling with weather, denial, and resistance about climate, grief, and art making. A few words of honoring, acknowledgements, and visual descriptions to begin. But even before I do that, I just want to say this piece it's still emergent at this moment, improvisational, many directions, multivalent. So go with the flow with me, if you will. It's like a great spiral with overlapping circles, mandorla, hearts, viscera, soul, hopefully. At least my soul is definitely in it. And I trust that yours is as well in this whole topic that, as I said to Shauna in the chat, I'm just broken open from everything that I've just been taking in. So with that, I bring in my ancestors. I am the daughter, let me start my sharing of screen here. Vimeo, share. Are you now seeing the screen okay? And are you hearing it? I am the daughter of Shalamis Levin and Mendel Irving Friedman of New York City, granddaughter of Rivka and Yankov Levine and Kate and Abraham Friedman, great-granddaughter of Sarah Stera and Mordechai Altman and Lena and Sauer Rosenwasser. My people were Yiddish-speaking Eastern European Jews originally from Belarus and then Baku in what is now Azerbaijan and from the Czech-Hungary border. We don't know our history prior to the 19th century, though we know that that was a time of genocidal pogroms, ethnic cleansing of my people and others. My grandparents immigrated to the United States, arriving in New York. Whoops, did that stop it? Good. My grandparents immigrated to the United States, arriving to New York through Ellis Island and the port of Seattle. I'm a first-generation native English speaker on my Russian Jewish side. I now call the Olympic Peninsula in the Northwest US my home. I live in Port Townsend, a town of 9,200 surrounded on 3 sides by water. Before it was destroyed in the 1850s, the Sklallam village of Katai stood here by the bluffs overlooking the Salish Sea, with the Cascade Mountains and Canadian border to the north and east, and the Olympic Mountains to the west. The Sklallam, Chimicum, and other Coast Salish peoples gathered and lived here for at least 10,000 years before Spanish settlers arrived in the 18th century and from other European countries in the 19th. There was also a Chinatown here at the turn of the last century. Both Katai and Chinatown were burned to the ground by white settlers. As the child of landless immigrants, when I honor Earth history, origins, timeless resonance, reciprocity, mythology, and connection with all the species of people. I can feel the depth of possibility of sustaining relationships with my human and more than human kin through naming those whose land I now inhabit, as well as naming my own ancestors. I also want to put a shout out for access. Not everyone has good screen access, some have visual impairments, and it also underscores and presences identities that may otherwise not be visible to describe images throughout my presentation, starting with myself. I am a sallow-skinned Ashkenazi Jewish white-presenting female with long dark brown and increasingly gray hair pulled back with combs, wearing a camel-colored Paddington bear-shaped hat. Today is my 61st birthday. I'm wearing a brown corduroy jacket, sea pearl earrings, and a choker necklace of Italian glass beads on which are strung my beloved Daniel's wedding band, my gold wedding band, and my engagement ring. Tomorrow would have been our 15th anniversary, and I dedicate this talk to him. Through this project, I've begun to address so much more deeply the questions I began with. If indeed we are, as many environmental scientists note, in the beginning of the sixth extinction, how does this reality dawn on humans viscerally, non-verbally, imaginally, beyond the heralding calls to awaken, which are thrown up many times daily now by activists, artists, and the news worldwide? To what degree are humans, with our capacious conscious and unconscious intelligence, registering shockwaves, even far beyond our immediate environs, in or out of rhythm with sea level rise, extreme weather, and loss of species? And are we, how are we, part of the counterbalance, adding our weight to the deadening numbness of denial, which palpably blankets the cloth of all being, interrupting the myriad voices of the living world, as if tearing through county-wide sheets of ancient sacred paper, seeking to callously silence the unstoppable stirring of the life force in all who live? What are the songs and gestures emerging from Earth herself? Who among us doesn't wake in the wee hours, antenna trembling, feeling the willful, close-minded habit to notice anomalies shifting, to feeling the surf, the interstitial fluid, the connectedness of all things, the porosity, the evidence of heartbreak? What about action, inaction, activism, and denial? How do we cope? How might listening lead to art and art lead to listening? And allowing such expression, how will I, through this sharing, and we, be moved? I was asking myself these questions as a city girl, raised in New York and now living so rurally on a half-acre during the pandemic, in such close proximity to the living world and the resonance everywhere of my beloved, who first came to this place and still visits from beyond. I now invite you into a short video. The unstoppable stirring. The towhee's calling. This is mossy rock. A granite boulder from one of the ice ages in two parts, and a frequent visitor, eating. Daniel gives us this invocation. Heart of earth, heart of sky, join together in me, intertwine in me, marry in me. Let the myth world come alive through me. Make my heart your dancing ground, my life your song. Grant me a voice to open the ears of the heedless and feed the hearts of the hungry. Let me sing into this world the beauty and ferocity of all divine beings. For your delight and our continuance, I pray. And from my tradition, the Psalms teaches us to number our days so we may get us a heart of wisdom. Noticing this was a haiku, I came up with an answer. Living by the truth, can I number my days and become teachable? Answering a question with a question. To face extinction and celebrate my birth and home among my relations with new creative work has required enoughness. And hand in hand, I have just been with myself, my neighbors, I, the only human among them. I wrote this, and I'll be interspersing poetry throughout, live and then some on the video. I'm so awkward as a human, I don't even know the reason. Why do we only walk on two legs in any season? Wouldn't it be a little easier if we had wings to fly? Wouldn't it be simpler if I could just swim against the tide? Most of all, if we would move in schools. Well, that might cause a little grace, or perhaps learn to fly into the open space, the way they murmurate, the way they will not leave the broken behind. Of course, not every species is so kind. Don't you remember the turn of the weather we all had to sequester before anyone worried about a mask? They were still worrying about themselves. Oh, don't you remember? Oh, maybe a quarter of the year. Well, it was all of a sudden, it was like everyone could feel and hear the new sun coming out. Daniel Deardorff taught that the living world is always talking to us. Confirmation comes to me from my more than human kin very quickly, but wonderfully in these days it has come from humans as well, in the form of talks and books. In its introduction to the new series of 5 books, Kinship, Belonging in a World of Relations, Gavin Van Horn states, becoming kinning consists of repeated intimacy, familiar encounters, and daily undoing and transformations that are dependent upon visitations and conversations with a smaller circle of place. And Robin Wall Kimmerer, also one of the editors of the Kinship series, says, when we practice kinship, we belong. In her poem Nightfall, speaking to injustice, violence against Black, Indigenous, and people of color, youth, females, and the environment, Camille Files asks, I wonder how many lives left before game over. These teachings guided me through this whole project. We go into the dark, and I will quickly scroll through for you to get little samples of the music that also arose. We start with frogs. Yeah, when the frogs echo. It's like a treasure hunt. There's something here beneath the leaves. The place where mystery begins. I was enthralled, but I also got really kind of intense about not wanting to get too cold in the weather. So I ended up singing with the drone of the washing machine. Long ago I read the tale Tilly Olsen wrote for us. She was then a single mom, dealing with the tasks of love. Tasks of home and tasks of love, oh, the norms back then. Standing at the ironing board, not the province of the men. Outside, the falling rain is like a steady soaking tide. I have promised I'd refrain from catching cold, I'm safe inside. Yet the weather and wet leaves bid me listen and take heed. Spinning, stirring, coming clean. Privileged I have my machine. Well running in my home through sturdy pipes on call to me. Heat and fire when I say go, 'cause I pay utilities. What about the powers that say solar, wind, go off the grid? How might I help climate change if I change the way I live? Some of my neighbors, snowberries, a robin's nest on the ground, red madrona berries, dug fir cones, always worth going out into the rain, hawthorn in the fall season, and peony. After I went into the dark, and I am watching the time, I came out to the rocks. That have lived for millions. And I had a surprise. I'd been digging all summer, discovering my father-in-law's rock collection under soil. Petrified wood, flint, and more. Count the days since we were born. If I hadn't put my hand down there, I wouldn't have known that mushroom was there, or these. And then look at the difference. One is a mushroom, one is a rock. There's no snow on the mountains in midsummer anymore. What about the alpine meadows? What is all the sorrow for? The way to get there is through here. The cedar tree through my window had been calling to me, and I finally made my way to her. And she has a song that's beginning to take shape, and Shauna and I started working on it yesterday. And I think that I will just give the deer the last word here. Kin, snuzzling, nuzzling their skin, twins. So perhaps you'll see the mycelium community that grows beneath these trees. If you could understand yourself, a universe in miniature, perhaps you'd see you mirror all around you. So we are, every single one of us, everyone. is one. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith-Kate. Astonishing.
Thank you.
And happy birthday.
Thank you.
And Elsa has her hand up.
Cool.
You're muted, Elsa.
Classic. Just want to say how moving that was, and I just felt you put so much of your heart into it, and to have.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on. I have a hearing impairment. If everyone else can mute, I can still hear her. Go for it.
I was also hearing some feedback then. Yeah, just you shared so much from the heart on so many levels in that, and I was really moved. And yeah, just the diversity of your offering, and I love how you brought your live voice, your song and your speech over the video. It was really innovative and yeah, really beautiful. And I also find myself singing with the washing machine. It's the only way I keep myself sane when someone's put their cycle on and I have to cook, and it's like, ah! So yeah, I'll think of you next time I do that. Thank you so much.
Emma.
Oh, happy birthday, Judith-Kate. Happy birthday, and thank you so much. Your presentation just blew my heart open, and I thought that your improvising or composition, and it may be that you clearly decided everything and the timing, but it just, that, you know, the blend between your live voice and the images that I was seeing worked so beautifully, and it had such a great flow to it, and I really got a lot out of it, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. Good to see you. I also wanted to say that two people on the call may be looking like strangers, and they're actually kin of mine. Lorena Checa is here, and Wendy from Bolinas, California, two very dear friends, one new and one very long time. So they were connecting in with the whole conference weekend and also with me on this. That's why they're here. Well, anybody else want to say anything, ask anything?
I just wanted, have you used this kind of format before? Because the layering was quite extraordinary, and it wasn't just the sonic layering, it was actually the visual layering of particular to Zoom, because here we had the, you know, the slightly stuttering video with your voice in it, and then we had your voice in it, and I was sometimes not even quite sure which was which, and it was wonderful. And it's kind of, there was an overflow of joy within it as well as sorrow, and I was very touched.
I'm so glad that's true. That would be my deepest hope. I will say, process-wise, that I've been exploring this for about 6 months. As some of you know from I was in the cohort for Poetics of Imagination, and I have been very much on Zoom with large communities, learning how to do facilitation of like ritual things and holding space. And I've also a lifelong performing singer-songwriter. So using those kind of skills and teaching skills on Zoom is a piece of it that is very long-standing for me. But the piece that's new is this interlaying of technologies And with my dissertation, because of inclusion and access being so important to me, and someone else mentioned neurodiversity, I have some of that too. So there was this idea that my dissertation would end up on a website in different formats. So it wasn't so much layered as my idea was like a gallery where you could go into a museum and either watch the whole documentary in long form, or you could go walking whichever direction you want and find stuff. And that was how I did my final project for the last 4.5 months. And I used a lot of different kinds of things, a lot more visual things than I did here as far as visual art. And that prepared me to be like much wilder with my experimenting, I think. So this idea of having a video that has the lyric video, but I'm the one who's singing live, this is brand new for this. And I experimented it with myself a bunch, and then I tested it out with Shauna yesterday, and she assured me that the vocal quality was good, which was my main concern. And so therefore it worked. As long as screen share worked, you know, and now your response is saying it really did work. So that's exciting. It's going to be a new thing for me to play with some more.
Well, it's fabulous. Great experiment. Great, good to see it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, it's great actually hearing other people confirm my own kind of impression with it. And I don't want to try and answer it now particularly, but I'm kind of intrigued as to why it works so well, because what I really loved about it was its sort of abruptness, and you just suddenly, we're going to the rocks now in under the soil in your dad's garden, and now we're over here, and I was completely with it, completely swept up in it. It was very moving. It was a really well orchestrated in its kind of. It reminded me of some performance poetry I've been to that looks really out of control and is actually just knows exactly where it wants to go next. And it's actually really sure-footed. So, yeah, really enjoyed it.
Mm. Thank you. I feel like I'm a student of everything, from all those synchronous things that were falling out, more and more of hip hop, more and more of other kinds of overlaying, you know, collagist kind of forms that really interest me. So if I'm doing it well enough to seem sure-footed, that's really cool, especially for a kid who didn't have the ability to stand on one of my legs when I was first born till I was in my 20s.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Anyone else? I know that we're getting close to the end here, right? Of our time. I didn't want to go over, but I'll leave it to you, Tracy. You're the moderator.
Yeah. I fear we are at the end of our time, and it's been wonderful. Thank you to everybody. It's been a highly engaging both celebration and grieving for many things that may be lost. And I'm sure this is just the beginning of more conversation and research. So thank you to everybody. Somebody had their hand up. Emma.
It was just a short, pragmatic thing to remind people to save the chat, because there's been a lot of sharing of things, and I personally often forget to share it. And thank you for the day, for the people who organised it. Thank you.
On an equally pragmatic note, then, if you unfortunately, if you own the Zoom call and you're recording it, it saves the chat. So at least we don't have to worry about manually saving it. It's there. We know it'll be there. So, and I have manually saved it too. But yeah, Emma's right. There's a huge amount in the chat. So references, comments, generous feedback, ideas, links, all kinds of amazing things. So absolutely worth digging back into.
Yeah, I just put some links of my references in there as far as the somatics and the kinship book, which if you have not yet seen it, there's a whole talk that Robin Walkimmer and the other two editors did that's just beautiful, and it's on YouTube.